Welcome back to the class of the chapter Body Fluids, under which we are discussing the blood. So we have seen about red blood cells, and in this class we will be studying about blood groups. We have seen that there are different individuals with different blood groups, and this blood group of any individual is determined by the presence of certain antigens that are present on the surface of the red blood cells. So based on the presence of these antigens on the surface of the red blood cells, the blood groups are determined or designated to any individual. Now let us see what are the different antigens that are present in different types of blood groups. And this classification of blood groups can be done based on the ABO system. It means there are different blood groups which can be categorized under this A, B and O systems. So here majority of the individuals, means 45% of the individuals will have no antigen on their surface of the red blood cell, and those red blood cells which do not have antigens on their surface, and those individuals are categorized under O group. Whereas the remaining 55% of the individuals, they have different types of antigens on their surface, and hence they can be categorized into either A blood group or B blood group and AB blood group. And this matching of blood groups has to be done before the transfusion of blood of one donor to another donor. It means we should check whether the donor and the recipient's blood groups are compatible with each other or not. This is called as cross matching. We should always transfuse the blood only to the recipient who is compatible with the blood of the donor. Now let's see what are the different types of blood groups, what are the different antigens that are present, and what are the different antibodies that are present in the individual, and with whom these blood groups are compatible with. So in this diagram you can see that there are four different types of blood groups. A, B, AB and O are the four different types of blood groups. We have been studying that immunity is the factor which protects our body from any infections, and this immunity is always, it depends upon antigen antibody reaction. The body will have this leukocytes which are involved in this immune system, and of which the lymphocytes in general, these are necessary for producing the antibodies. Any foreign substance which enters into the body, it is considered as an antigen, and immediately the antibody present in the human body will go and react with that antigen, and it will try to destroy that antigen, because if that foreign antigen which has come into our body, if it is not destroyed, it will destroy our cells and it will lead to infection or disease, and hence the antibodies play an important role in the defense mechanism, and they are specific to certain antigens. In the same way, here we have seen that the red blood cells have different antigens, and those individuals with A blood group, they have A antigen on their surface. If they have A antigen on their surface, they will have an B antibody. It means it is against to the B antigen. The antibody that is present in that individual is against to the B antigen. It means we can see the A blood group, it is having A antigen and it is having an anti-B antibody, and these individuals can receive blood from either A group or from O group, because A group individuals will have only the same antigen and antibody in that blood, whereas O group individuals, since they do not have any antigen on their surface, they do not react with any antibody that is present in the individual. And this A group can also be given to individuals with either A group or AB group, whereas the individuals with B group, they have B antigen on their surface and they have anti-A antibody in their blood, and as a donor they can donate blood to either B group and AB group, whereas as a recipient they can receive blood from B group and O group. Whereas the other blood group, that is AB, they have both A antigen and B antigen on their surface. So since they have both the antigens, they will not have any antibodies against their antigens. So the blood of the individual with AB blood group will not have any antibody. So they can donate blood to only AB because their body is not having any antibodies, and they can receive blood from any group because they have all the antigens, and no blood group will react with that thing, and hence these are called as universal recipients. Whereas the O blood group, they do not have any antigen on their surface, but they have both anti-A antibodies and anti-B antibodies, and they can donate blood to all the groups because they don't have any antigen on their surface, whereas they can receive the blood from only O group. So in this way the blood groups can be classified among the individuals. Now let's see the rhesus system. So we have been hearing about the blood groups, that either it is A, B, AB or O. Apart from this, they are also specified or defined as positive or negative. A positive, O positive, A negative, in this way. What is this positive and negative? The positive, in the sense, it is the presence of an antigen called as rhesus, the rhesus antigen, or it is also called as R antigen. If the red blood cells of the individuals have this R antigen or rhesus antigen, then that individuals are categorized as positive, and if they lack this rhesus antigen, that individuals are categorized as negative. 85% of the individuals, they have this rhesus antigen, and hence they can be categorized as positive, whereas the remaining 15%, they do not have this rhesus antigen on the red blood cell, and hence they are considered as negative. Apart from considering either the individual is having compatibility with the donor or the recipient, it is also essential to see this rhesus antigen, and it is very essential in conditions such as pregnancy, where incompatible blood transfusions will lead to death of the individual. Now let's see the other type of blood cells. They are leukocytes, and these leukocytes are essential for detecting any foreign substance that is entering into the body, and this also will detect that particular substance which is having an ability to induce an antigen, or which are antigenic in nature, and hence these are very essential against the defense and immunity of the body. And these leukocytes are the largest blood cells of all the blood cells. They are the largest in size with nuclei and granules, whereas we have seen that the red blood cells or erythrocytes, they do not have nuclei and then do not have any other cell organelles apart from hemoglobin, whereas leukocytes, they have nucleus and they have granules, and they constitute about only 1% of the total blood volume. We have seen 99% of the blood cells are red blood cells, whereas the remaining cells are only 1%. And this leukocytes, they are categorized into two categories. One, they are called as granulocytes, and the other, they are called as agranulocytes. Granulocytes, as the name itself it suggests, these cells, they have certain granules in their cytoplasm, whereas agranulocytes, they do not have this granules. And examples of this granulocytes are neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils, whereas examples of agranulocytes are monocytes and lymphocytes. So this is the classification of leukocytes. They are classified into granulocytes and agranulocytes. Granulocytes are once again of three different types: neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils. And agranulocytes are of two different types. They are monocytes and lymphocytes. And generally, their number will increase during the time of any infection or disease, or we can say cancers and trauma. In the case of any damage, physical damage, in these conditions, the number of this white blood cells or leukocytes will increase. Now let's see them in detail. The granulocytes. Granulocytes are also called as polymorphonuclear leukocytes. Polymorphonuclear leukocytes. Polymorphonuclear in the sense their nucleus will have different shapes, and hence it is called as polymorphonuclear leukocytes. Unlike the other cells which are having round nucleus, the nucleus of this granulocytes is lobed. It has from 2 lobes, 3 lobes, 4 lobes up to 6 lobes. They have different lobe shaped structures of nucleus, and this granulocytes also, they originate from the pluripotent stem cell of the bone marrow. We have seen pluripotent stem cell is the stem cell which gives rise to all the blood cells, and granulocytes also originate from the pluripotent stem cell, and this gives rise to precursor cell that is called as myeloblast, and this myeloblast gives rise to respective myelocytes such as neutrophil myelocyte, eosinophil myelocyte, and basophil myelocyte, and this once again gives rise to respective cells. And we have seen that the nucleus is multilobed, and we are categorizing that there are 3 different types of cells, and this categorization of cells, it depends upon the type of dye that it takes during the time of staining. So we have to observe under the microscope, and we have to apply different types of stains to see the number of that particular cells that are present in that blood smear or sample. So here we use different types of stains such as eosin, which is also called as the red acid dye, and which is taken up by the eosinophils and which gives red color to those cells, and hence these cells which take up this red acid dye or eosin, it is called as eosinophils, whereas basophils, they take up the blue dye which is also called as methylene blue, and hence these are also called as basophils, and this methylene blue is alkaline in nature, whereas the neutrophils, they take up both acidic dye and basic dye, and they appear in purple color, and hence these are called as neutrophils. Eosinophils take up eosin, the acid dye, and which is red in color, whereas basophils take up the alkaline dye, which is methylene blue, and they appear blue in color. And the neutrophils, they take up both eosin and methylene blue, and they appear to be in purple color. And that is the reason why they are named as eosinophils, basophils, and neutrophils. Now let's see about them in detail. So neutrophils, these are the smallest of all these granulocytes, and these are very fast and they are very active scavengers. Scavengers in the sense they will eat all those things which are not necessary by the body, and the process by which they eat these unnecessary substances or microorganisms which are invaded or infectious organisms which enter into the body is called as phagocytosis. By phagocytosis, they will scavenge or they will eat away these foreign infectious substances which enter into the body, and hence they protect the body from infection, and they also are involved in removing the dead cells and the debris from any damaged tissues. The damaged tissues, debris that is formed also will be eaten away by this neutrophils, and generally the neutrophils will reach the site of this infection or inflammation by the chemotaxins that are released at the site of infection. The site of infection, the cellular membrane will release these chemotaxins, and this chemotaxins will facilitate the attraction of these neutrophils that are present in the blood, and they are accumulated more in that particular infectious region. And they also have an ability to squeeze from the endothelial membrane. They move out of this endothelial membrane and they enter into the tissues also. So these are the cells which can enter into the tissues also, whereas the other cells such as red blood cells, they won't leave the blood vessel, whereas these, they can leave the blood vessel, they enter into the tissues, and the process by which they squeeze or they move from the blood cells membrane into the tissues is through diapedesis. And we have seen that the nuclei is lobed, and the nuclei in neutrophils is up to 6 lobes, and here it also has granules, and these granules are called as storage sites for various enzymes which are released once the ingested material. We have seen that the neutrophils will ingest or will eat these invading organisms. Once these invading organisms or cell debris which is taken up by phagocytosis, the enzymes that are present in the granules will be released and they will digest that particular ingested material. And the lifespan of neutrophils is about 6 to 9 hours. Generally, we will observe pus in any wound. We'll be observing the pus, and this pus consists of various substances such as dead cells of that particular tissue and some microbes, either dead or alive, and phagocytes which are killed by these microbes. Now let's see the other type of granulocytes. They are eosinophils. These eosinophils are called as eosinophils because they take up the red acidic dye, and hence they appear red in color when observed under microscopes. And these are less active phagocytes when compared to that of neutrophils, but they also have the same mechanism, and these eosinophils are more essential in damaging or destroying those foreign organisms which are large in size, especially parasites such as worms. The worms which are present in our body or which enter into our body or which grow in our body, they are very large, so that they cannot be engulfed or they cannot be eaten away by phagocytosis. And such worms or infectious parasites are taken care by this eosinophils, and this eosinophils will go and bind to those worms. And these eosinophils also have granules which have toxic chemicals, and these toxic chemicals which are released when it is bound to that particular worm will lead to death of that particular worms or infectious organisms, and their accumulation will increase during the time of asthma, or in the case of skin allergies, means allergic reactions will enhance their accumulation in the particular region. And they also induce tissue inflammation, and they also reduce tissue inflammation by releasing substance such as histaminase, which causes breakdown of histamine, which is the chemical which mediates this allergic reactions. This inflammation, it is induced by this action of toxic chemicals, whereas this inhibition of inflammation, it is by this release of histaminase. The basophils are those cells which take up the alkaline dye, which is the methylene blue, and this basophils will appear blue in color when observed under microscope. And basophils also are accumulated as a result of allergic reactions. Generally, basophils are the cells which have certain substances such as histamine and heparin, and this histamine, it is allergen, whereas heparin, it is an anticoagulant. The heparin, histamine and certain inflammatory mediators also are present in these granules of basophils, and they mediate allergic reactions, and these are also considered as the circulating mast cells. So mast cells are one type of cells which are present in the body, and they are adhered to tissues, and this also have the same heparin, histamine and inflammatory mediators, but they are adhered to the tissues, whereas basophils, they are circulating mast cells, or we can call them as circulating mast cells because they also have the same histamine, heparin and inflammatory mediators, and they are involved in mediating this inflammatory reactions, because they will detect the antigen, and this antigen will bind with the antibodies that are present on this basophils, and this antigen antibody reaction will lead to rupture of the basophils. We have seen about granulocytes, and now let's see about agranulocytes. Agranulocytes, in the sense, these are the cells which does not have any granules in their cell, and these agranulocytes are once again of two different types. They are monocytes and lymphocytes, and they constitute about 25 to 50% of the total leukocytes. The total leukocytes itself constitute only 1% of the total blood cells, and of these 1%, 25 to 50% of the leukocytes are agranulocytes, and these cells, they have large nucleus, single large nucleus which is round, and they do not have any granules in their cytoplasm. Of these, let's see about monocytes. So monocytes are the largest of the white blood cells, and some circulate in the blood, whereas some migrate to different organs in the body, and where they once again differentiate or they turn themselves into other types of cells, and the purpose of the cells which are modified also will be similar, that is phagocytosis. And these monocytes, they transform in the cells to form macrophages. We have seen phagocytosis is cell eating, macrophages in the sense they are large in size and they are involved in phagocytosis of larger substances or more substance. And both monocytes and macrophages, they produce interleukin 1, and this interleukin 1 that is produced by these monocytes and macrophages, they increase the body temperature because they act, interleukins act on the hypothalamus, which is a temperature regulatory center, and they will increase the temperature. Apart from this, they also are involved in stimulating the production of proteins such as globulins in the liver, and they also enhance the production of certain lymphocytes such as T lymphocytes. So all these are the functions of this monocytes, and this monocytes, they play a very important role in both immunity and inflammation. And we have seen that these monocytes are called as monocytes when they remain in the circulation, whereas monocytes which are migrated to different tissues, there they transform into macrophages, and hence these together they form the monocyte macrophage system. Now let's see about this monocyte macrophage system. And this monocyte macrophage system, it is also called as a reticuloendothelial system. Monocyte macrophage system or reticuloendothelial system. Generally, the macrophages, they are few in number and they are also slightly mobile, whereas few are fixed to the tissues where they are present, and they serve the purpose of body's defense mechanisms. And these are macrophages in the sense they are large eaters, large cell eaters, and they are more powerful and long lived than that of neutrophils. We have seen neutrophils also are involved in phagocytosis, but these are very small cells. Monocytes and macrophages, these are called as macro because they are large in size and they eat large foreign substances or large amount of foreign antigens. And this monocyte macrophage system, both are also involved in production of certain cytokines and interleukins, which are mediators of this inflammation, and these also play a very important role in linking the specific and non-specific defense mechanisms. So defense mechanisms can be categorized into specific and non-specific. Specific in the sense they are targeted to only one particular type of foreign invasion antigens, whereas non-specific, they are not selective. They can go and attack any substance or any microorganism that enters into the body or any antigen that enters into the body. And this monocyte macrophages, they form a link between the specific and non-specific defense mechanisms. And this macrophages also, they form a capsule against that particular substance which cannot be destroyed. For example, the tubercle bacilli or any inorganic substances that enter into the body. So these will be encapsulated by these macrophages and they are walled off, or we can say they will become inert. So they won't be reacting with any other body substances. So they form a wall against these substances. So let's see what are the different types of macrophages into which the monocytes will differentiate into. Monocytes, they differentiate into microglia in the brain. So the microglia which we have studied previously also are involved in phagocytosis and defense against foreign invasion antigens in the brain tissue. Whereas the monocytes in the lungs, they are differentiated into alveolar macrophages, and these are present in the alveoli, and hence these are called as alveolar macrophages. Whereas in the lymph nodes, monocytes are differentiated into sinus lining cells. So here they are called as sinus lining cells, and these sinus lining cells also are present not only in the lymph nodes but in other lymphatic organs such as spleen and thymus gland. So here also the sinus lining cells are present. And in the liver, the monocytes are differentiated into Kupffer cells. Here, Kupffer cells, where they are also called as hepatic macrophages. Whereas in the synovial joints, they form the synovial cells, whereas in the bones they form the osteoclasts, whereas in the skin they form the dendritic cells. So these are the different types of cells which the monocytes are transformed into in different types of tissues, and in all these regions they are involved in phagocytosis of that particular foreign invasion that or cell debris that occurs in that particular tissue. Now let's see about the other type of agranulocytes. They are the lymphocytes. We have seen that leukocytes constitute about 1% of the total blood cells, and of these leukocytes the agranulocytes constitute about 25 to 50%, and of these 25 to 50%, 20 to 30% are lymphocytes, and these lymphocytes are smaller than monocytes, and these also have larger nuclei, and they also do not have any granules in their cytoplasm, and these also circulate in the blood, but they are not differentiated into different types as we have seen the monocytes have differentiated to macrophages, but these remain in the circulation, but most of them they are stored in the lymphatic tissue such as lymph nodes and the spleen than in the blood, and these also are developed from the same pluripotent stem cell in the red bone marrow, and this once again leads to formation of a precursor cell such as a lymphoblast, and which once again leads to formation of different types of lymphocytes which are called as T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes. The T lymphocytes which are produced from this lymphoblast, they migrate to the thymus gland, and this thymus gland, it is a part of lymphatic tissue, and this thymus gland will cause maturation or development of this T lymphocytes, and the B lymphocytes generally are present within the bloodstream. Now let's see about this T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes. The T lymphocytes, which are also called as T cells, these are matured in the thymus gland, and this is facilitated by the hormone called as thymosin, and this mature T cell, it is programmed in such a way that this will detect that particular type of antigen, and this is important for cell mediated immunity. There are two different types of immunity. One is cell mediated immunity and the other is humoral mediated immunity, or it is also called as antibody mediated immunity. And here T lymphocytes are essential for cell mediated immunity. We have seen that T cells are programmed in such a way that it will detect one particular type of antigen. For example, you take chickenpox virus, you consider it as an antigen, and this T lymphocyte which is programmed to detect chickenpox virus will only detect the chickenpox virus. It will not detect any other bacteria or any other virus. It will not detect rabies virus, or it will not detect influenza virus. It will detect only the chickenpox virus. So that is called as specificity, and here this T cell antigen is programmed only to detect that particular antigen, and they will detect that thing. In the same way, there are different T cells which are produced to detect different types of viruses, different types of bacteria, or different types of antigen here. And there are different types of T cells. There are cytotoxic T cells, helper T cells, suppressor T cells, and memory T cells are the four different types of T cells. So cytotoxic T cells are the T cells which we have discussed now. That is, they are specific to any type of antigen. So these cytotoxic T cells, they go and directly bind to that particular antigen and they cause destruction or removal of that particular antigen. Whereas helper T cells are also such as cytokines. They are essential for helping the B lymphocytes. Whereas suppressor T cells, they turn off this immune reaction. We have seen that whenever an antigen comes into the body, this T cells will go and bind to that particular thing, and this immune response is suppressed by this suppressor T cells when the immune response is completed. Whereas memory T cells, they are produced and they remain in the body for a prolonged time, so that this will recognize that particular antigen if at all there is a reinfection. For example, if one individual is infected with chickenpox virus, the chances for him to get reinfected will be very less. This is because of the presence of memory T cells within the bloodstream. So the memory T cells which can recognize chickenpox virus, it remains within the blood, and this will go on bind to that particular antigen and it will destroy it immediately, so that a reinfection with that particular virus, it will not occur in this case. Whereas B lymphocytes, these are produced and these are matured in the bone marrow. Whereas we have seen the T cells are produced from the bone marrow, but they are matured in the thymus gland. Whereas B lymphocytes, they are produced and they are matured in the bone marrow. And these are less mobile and these are mostly seen in the lymphoid tissue itself, such as spleen and lymph nodes. And these B lymphocytes, they are involved in production of antibodies. Whereas we have seen the T cells will directly go and bind to that particular antigens. Whereas B cells, they produce antibodies and this antibodies go and bind to the antigen. And these antibodies are called as immunoglobulins, which are nothing but they are proteins and which will go and bind to that particular antigen and they will destroy that antigen. And these antibodies also are specific in terms of their antigen, and only that particular antibody will go and bind to that particular antigen and it causes destruction of that antigen. The last type of blood cells, these are platelets, or these are also called as thrombocytes. And we have seen the pluripotent stem cell, it gives rise to a precursor cell called as megakaryoblast, and this megakaryoblast, once again it gives rise to this thrombocytes are platelets, and these platelets are very small disc shaped structures with approximately 2 to 4 micrometer in diameter, and these are mostly stored in the spleen, and generally these also they do not have nucleus. So only these two cells, one is red blood cells or erythrocytes, and thrombocytes, they do not have a nuclei, but this thrombocytes, they have granules with contents of substances which are essential for clotting of blood, and these play a very important role in homeostasis, that is prevention of blood loss. So in prevention of blood loss, homeostatic mechanism, platelets or thrombocytes play a very important role, and they approximately are about 2 to 3.5 lakhs of cells per cubic millimeter. And this synthesis of these thrombocytes, it is facilitated or it is enhanced by an hormone called as thrombopoietin, which is produced from the liver, and the lifespan of this platelets or thrombocytes is about 8 to 11 days. We have seen the lifespan of red blood cells is about approximately 120 days, whereas the lifespan of neutrophils is about 6 to 9 hours, whereas the basophils are short-lived, and this thrombocytes, they live for about 9 to 11 days, and they are also once again destroyed by the spleen macrophages that are present in the spleen after the lifespan of that particular thrombocytes. Now let's see an important mechanism of homeostasis, that is blood clotting. So we have seen homeostasis is a process which is essential for maintaining the normal function of all the activities in our body. Our body temperature is maintained adequately by homeostasis. Our temperature is, our blood pressure is maintained by homeostasis. Our hormonal levels are maintained by homeostasis. Our pH of the tissues, pH of blood is maintained by homeostasis. In this way, the homeostasis that is essential for regulating the blood flow or preventing blood loss during the time of damage or destruction of blood vessel or any tissue injury, it is through homeostasis. And this homeostasis, it occurs in three different steps. One is vasoconstriction, platelet plug formation, and coagulation. These are the three steps which are necessary to prevent the loss of blood during the time of any damage or rupture to the skin or to the blood vessels. And the last step is fibrinolysis, which is recovery from the repair. So these are the four steps which are essential for maintaining the blood flow or preventing the blood loss and maintenance of homeostasis. So generally, whenever there occurs an damage to any blood vessel, that particular blood vessel will release a chemical substance called as serotonin, and this serotonin, which is released from the platelets, and the thromboxanes which are released from the cell membrane, will cause constriction of blood vessels. Once the blood vessels are constricted, the blood flow to that particular region also will be decreased, so that the blood loss will be reduced. And after this, there occurs platelet plug formation, and as we have seen, the platelets release serotonin. This will enhance the adhesiveness or stickiness of the platelets, and all the platelets go and bind to that particular damaged blood vessel, and that platelets will once again release a substance called as adenosine diphosphate or ADP, and this ADP will further lead to binding of the circulating platelets in that particular region, and this leads to formation of an platelet plug. And this platelet plug formation, it occurs immediately, and it is not permanent, or it can be easily disrupted, because only the platelets just go and adhere to the damaged blood vessel. Whereas this platelet plug should be reinforced or should be further supported by a thread work, which is called as fibrin threads, and this formation of fibrin threads, it occurs by a mechanism called as clotting, and this clotting of blood leads to formation of this fibrin threads on the platelet plug, so that the platelet plug will remain to that particular damaged blood vessel, and so blood loss does not occur. And this clotting, it occurs on two different pathways, that is extrinsic pathway and intrinsic pathway. That extrinsic pathway, it occurs within seconds, whereas intrinsic pathway, it takes time for about 6 minutes. And we have seen that there are different clotting factors such as fibrinogen, prothrombin, thromboplastin, calcium, Labelle factor. In this way, there are about 12 clotting factors, and these clotting factors are activated in a sequence, so that they finally lead to formation of that stabilized fibrin threads or insoluble fibrin threads. You can see in this diagram that it shows two different pathways, extrinsic pathway and intrinsic pathway. So in the extrinsic pathway, the thromboplastin, which is a chemical that is released by the damaged tissue cells, will enter the blood, and this will initiate the extrinsic pathway. Whereas in the intrinsic pathway, the platelets that are adhered to the damaged blood vessel, they will initiate the intrinsic pathway. And both this extrinsic pathway and intrinsic pathway, it leads to a final common pathway, which leads to formation of an prothrombin activator. And after this prothrombin activator is formed, the prothrombin is activated to thrombin, and this thrombin will convert soluble fibrinogen into insoluble fibrin threads, and this fibrin threads will form a meshwork on the platelet plug, which will allow the platelet plug to remain in that particular position for a prolonged time till that blood vessel is repaired. You can see here this diagram, it shows the intrinsic pathway and extrinsic pathway. So in the extrinsic pathway, which we have seen, it occurs within a short period. So here the trauma or damage to the blood vessel, it leads to activation of factor 7, and this factor 7, it is stable factor, and this factor 7 is converted into factor activated form of factor 7, which is 7A, and this will lead to conversion of factor 10, that is Stewart factor, which will activate this Stewart factor, and this Stewart factor, activated Stewart factor, it is called as the prothrombin activator, and this prothrombin activator will convert prothrombin to thrombin. Thrombin will convert fibrinogen to fibrin, and fibrin, insoluble fibrin, is once again converted to. So in this diagram, it shows the two different pathways which are essential for clotting. So here the extrinsic pathway, damage to any tissues will lead to release of a tissue factor, and this factor will convert factor 7 to factor 7A. You can find factor 7, it is stable factor, and this activated factor 7 will convert Stewart factor into activated Stewart factor, and this activated Stewart factor or factor 10A, here it acts as prothrombin activator, and this prothrombin activator will convert prothrombin to thrombin, and thrombin converts fibrinogen to fibrin, and this fibrin is soluble, and this soluble fibrin is converted into insoluble fibrin by factor 13, that is fibrin stabilizing factor. So in this way clot forms in the extrinsic pathway, whereas in the intrinsic pathway, which involves about 6 minutes, whereas extrinsic pathway, it occurs within seconds, whereas intrinsic pathway, it occurs in about 6 minutes, and here it involves for further more factors. So here the damaged surface will lead to activation of factor 12, that is Hajman factor. Hajman factor will get activated, and this activated Hajman factor will convert factor 11 to 11A, that is plasma thromboplastin antecedent, and this factor 11 will convert factor 9, that is Christmas factor, and this Christmas factor, once again, it converts inactive Stewart factor to active Stewart factor, which is nothing but prothrombin activator. So once again, the final steps are common for both extrinsic pathway and intrinsic pathway. And we have seen that after the clot is formed, it takes for some time that the damaged blood vessel will be repaired, and once the damaged blood vessel is repaired, and this clot has to be removed, and this removal of this clot after the repair, it is called as fibrinolysis. And this fibrinolysis, it occurs by activation of an inactive enzyme called as plasminogen. The plasminogen that is present in the bloodstream or in the clot will be converted into plasmin, and this plasmin will cause dissolution of fibrin so that the clot will be removed, and once again the damaged cells or ruptured or dead cells will be taken away by phagocytosis by any of these granulocytes. In this way, the clotting will regulate the homeostasis. So this is regarding the chapter blood. Thank you.